The Spotlight, shining a light on podcasts and videos that have caught our attention.
Hi and welcome to The Spotlight. My name is Jen Spiker and I look forward to highlighting a video you'll find in the Vision app. Gary Hoogvliet is 6 foot 6 inches tall, hence the name of his interview program, A Very Tall Man. Gary's interviews can be seen in the Watch tab of the Vision app. He's just finished a new series of interviews on location in the UK. One of the guests on this new series of A Very Tall Man was someone you probably recognise but may not know her name.
The Spotlight with Jen Spiker.
Today's guest has been on TV for a number of years and she will in all probability be instantly recognisable. So, who is she? Anne Hegarty, though you might know her better as the Governess from The Chase. And being in England, it seemed only proper that the first question I asked her was, how do you take your tea?
Milk first?
No, tea first.
Tea first?
Tea first so that you can see whether it's strong enough or indeed too strong.
Now, is that the posh way or...?
Well, it is, yes. It's considered, people who put milk in first, bit common. But only snobs care about that. And who cares what snobs think?
Exactly. Now, we've got a little present for you from New Zealand, and normally you'd take it home and open it afterwards, but because I think that this present is going to save the Chase management thousands of pounds, thousands, I'd love it if you could open it now.
I will do that. What do we have here? Tree and flowers. And it enables you to learn New Zealand flowers.
So are you anywhere aware of New Zealand flowers?
I've only been to New Zealand once, and I didn't really have enough time travelling around to see how different the flora is from Australia, but I know it's very different climatically from Australia.
So we thought we'd give you the tea towel so that you can swat up on New Zealand flowers, and then if the question comes up, you're back, bang.
Wonderful.
Do you
often
get questions about New Zealand on The Chase?
Not very often. I know they've been asking us if we would do some introductions for New Zealand, and they say to you, could you say, start by saying hello? And I'm like, well, could I say kia ora? Is that okay?
Oh, very good.
Oh, well, we have no idea what that means, but if Anne wants to say it, that's fine.
Kia ora means hello, welcome.
I know it does,
so it's really, really good. So,
yeah.
And so it is kia ora, Anne, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
I don't know, well, you won't know this, but you and I are both fans of one thing.
Oh, yeah?
Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, yes. I buy so much stuff on Facebook. I was going to say I buy so much rubbish, but actually I buy good stuff. I buy stuff I really like and appreciate.
But what about the stuff that you bought on Facebook Marketplace that you don't? My worst buy was a pair of shoes that I loved but didn't fit me.
Well, yeah, no, I've never bought clothes on Facebook Marketplace, and if I did, yes, I would make sure they fitted. I tend to buy... I'm a sucker for Chinese, what they call fish pots, sort of big... ceramic bowls with paintings of goldfish inside, and you put plants in them, and I've got several of those, and they really are lovely. On one occasion I bought an enormous mirror, and the thing is I know that I can get in huge quantities of stuff into my little Honda Jazz, but it wasn't quite big enough for the giant mirror. So what we had to do was to leave it in a neighbour's downstairs flat, and then I phoned David, my agent, and said, could you possibly come round with your giant car and fit this mirror in and bring it to me? So unfortunately he's very long-suffering. But it's a gorgeous mirror. I've got it in my living room, and it's got plants in front of it, and it's just near the window, so you get more light and more plants.
I was thinking before coming to meet you that your life has changed. And many of our lives changed. I go back to when I was 16, 17. I thought I was going to be a school teacher. And my dad told me that for the next 40 years, I'd be a school teacher and I'd be very happy. But it didn't work out that way. Go back to when you were 15, 16, and what was in your mind?
15, 16. I mean, I vaguely wanted to be a writer. I always did very well at English, but I didn't really have anything particular I wanted to write about. I very much admired people who could write stories, but I've never been able to. I read enormously. I vaguely supposed that I would monetize it by being a journalist, which is what I did try doing for about 10 years. And then I moved into academic proofreading because I was always much more interested in correcting other people's mistakes. I love correcting other people's mistakes. It's so much fun. So I very much enjoyed doing that for about 20 years. But yeah, that was the idea. I was going to be some sort of writer or something. I never seriously thought about being a teacher because just no, I'm absolutely no good with them. I would be no good with keeping order or with attempting to instruct people who didn't want to be instructed.
But did I read somewhere that you actually have written a couple of children's books? When I was just starting out proofreading, I got a job in-house at a children's publishing house in Manchester. I did write 2 books under the name Richard Scarry, and I should mention that Richard Scarry, signed off on that. In fact, we were dealing with his son, Huck. He literally is Hucklecat, if you know the Richard Scarry books, but there's a character in it called Hucklecat. What I was asked to do was to take an old Richard Scarry book and cut out the pictures and basically turn them into a new book and come up with some new text and turn it into a sticker book. So journalist, proofwriter, writer of children's books, and now you're on the telly. Who was the most surprised person in the world to one day see you on telly?
Not me, oddly enough. I've always secretly wanted to be famous and always sort of thought, one day I will be, but I'm just not quite sure at what. Probably people I was at school with, I think. I have recently got back in touch with people that I was at school with, particularly people I was at secondary school with. And a few months ago, I went and had tea with a friend who now lives in Finchley. And he told me, he was a year ahead of me in school, and he told me what I hadn't known, that he'd been very worried about me when we were at school. He was like, how's she going to cope when she leaves school? How will she cope at university? She'll be out of a familiar setting and she's not going to know what to do. And I think a lot of people were sort of tremendously relieved that I finally found, a job that actually brought me in money that I could do. So
were they surprised because they knew that you were autistic? Is that why they were worried about you?
I don't think a lot of... I've noticed that nobody who knew my mother has had anything to say to me because I've kind of gone off the script. The script was always that my mother was this wonderful person, enormously accomplished, and she's got this son who's pretty good, and then she's got the daughter. Oh dear, yes, we're not sure what to make of the daughter. And all those people have just gone completely quiet since I got the job on the Chase. Of course, they may be dead. I don't know.
So were you always brainy?
Yes, I was always a nerdy child, and I learnt early on that I could memorise things, which was quite nice. I used to. My mother was very, very keen on never putting pressure on children, to the extent that it was kind of frustrating. I was always the "mummy, you're not watching me" sort of child. And she felt that she'd rather had Shakespeare shoved down her throat when she was little. So she put the Shakespeare on the top shelf of the bookshelf. And she didn't really quite figure out that I was the child who liked to climb. I was an extremely climbing child. And I just swarmed up the bookshelf and got the Shakespeare down. And I knew the phrase "to be or not to be, that is the question." And I thought, well, what happens after that? That can't be the whole of it, because it doesn't make any sense. So I thought, right, I want to find this speech and find out what the rest of it is.
Whether it's nobler in the mind.
Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against the sea of troubles, and by opposing them to die, sleep, no more, and by sleep say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks. And I can do the whole thing, because I read it so many times, I realised I actually knew it all off by heart.
Well done.
So I discovered, that I could learn things off by heart, and this was my party trick. And I did that. And I remember at school, there was a staircase that had photographs going up it of recent monarchs. And I noticed that it seemed to go straight from George VI to George V. And I thought, hang on a minute, I have a feeling there was another one in there. Where's he gone? okay, well, clearly I can't trust these people to tell me the truth. I'm going to have to go and look the list up myself. And as a result, I know all the monarchs of England from 1066 with the dates, and I had done since I was in primary school.
So for you, does everything have to be right?
I don't think I'm certainly not a perfectionist. I'm not sort of obsessive compulsive. I just, I wanted to know things, and I just wanted to be reassured, because I would ask my mother questions and I would never understand the answer. So I thought, right, I'm just going to go and look them up in books then. So I learned to do that.
And so you were what, 8, 9, 10?
Yes, I mean, probably younger than that. Must have been around. I tend to assume that everything happens when I was about 8. I think I tend to sort of crunch all years into about 1966. But I think probably around 8.
So we know you as one of the chasers.
Indeed.
Can you remember the first time you ever walked into the studio to record for the first time?
It felt like ages before we finally got in studio. We had spent what felt like months, was probably only weeks, rehearsing in small rooms with cut-out cardboard table and little sort of fold-up cardboard pegs, and then a strip of paper that went from 1 to 30, and that was to represent the final chase. And we kept on doing this, and I kept thinking, it's so long since they did the first series, and I can't really remember what this is all going to be like when we get in. But finally, yeah, we did get in. I remember the very first show we ever filmed, because I lost. Which, I always say to new chasers, it's okay to lose your first show. Don't worry about that. But I do remember, I simply remember that I was trying to be terribly intimidating and cold and icy and merciless, and just basically staring down the contestants. And I remember that one of the contestants I was facing was a farmer from Gloucestershire called Bill, and when he came out to the table, Bradley noticed he was looking extremely nervous. He said, "You all right, mate?" And Bill said, I got a half-ton bull on my farm. Don't scare me as much as she does. And at the end of the series, the producer gave me a little card with a picture of a black bull on it and said, "To remind you of Bill." So it was nice to know, right, I'm getting the scary bit right. And I mean, I absolutely love doing the chase. It's absolutely the best job I've ever had. And there's a clause in our contract that says you have to undertake to maintain your skills as a chaser.
So how do you do that?
Well, going to lots of quizzes. This is what I do. Basically just quizzing a lot. Even though, if I started losing, they wouldn't mind, but I'd mind.
On the Spotlight, we've been listening to part of a conversation between Gary Hoogvliet and Anne Hegarty. This interview is an episode of A Very Tall Man, which you'll find in the Watch tab of the Vision app. To watch this conversation and more like it, scroll to the A Very Tall Man channel. My name is Jen Spiker. Join me next time on The Spotlight as I share more of this conversation between Gary Hoogvliet and Anne Hegarty.
For more great podcasts and videos like the one featured today, check out vision.org.au or the free Vision app.